Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the weekly comic book roundup. We got a decently sized haul, and let's get started. Kicking things off, we've got Marauders #1, part of the Destiny of X launch of the Krakoa and X-Men books. So, Marauders #1 really kind of spins out of the recent Marauders annual, which in all honesty is nice to see. Annuals tend not to have any real bearing on a title, sadly. At best, an annual, in the best of situations, an annual may end up being a storyline, end up wrapping up a storyline. But more often than not, it's just a one-off story that really doesn't have any real effects on the ongoing story until 20 years later, when a writer comes along who loved that particular annual and just has to see it become, has to realize the consequences of it in their stories. But yeah, Marauders their annual actually mattered, which is great. So, as it introduced the new team and gave us Brimstone love in the modern day of the Marvel universe. So we begin in let's see. Jackson Hole, Wyoming. There is a massive pillar of flame erupting from the town square. Turns out to actually be a mutant. The Marauders show up to prevent the National Guard from attacking said mutant. And manage to save the day and calm him down. Meanwhile, Kate is following a map sheet that was found in a Mysterium puzzle box. The puzzle box is thousands of years old, and but the map inside is in Kate's handwriting. So she follows the map and finds Cassandra Nova. How do I put this? The psychic clone or psychic twin, not clone, twin of Charles Xavier, who Xavier ate basically absorbed in the womb. However, she became a separate entity and got a body, and and she may have also done a few questionable things like orchestrating the Genoshan massacre, declaring war, starting a war on the Shi'ar Empire, little things, totally forgivable. 60 million mutant genocide. Oh, that's no big deal. No, but the big question is, what do they, what to do with them? What to do with her? But she's digging into Krakoa and is finding the organs of Krakoa. Meanwhile, Tempo and Psylocke are training together, with Tempo explaining to Psylocke that she doesn't need a weapon because time blunts every blade, and every bone as well. Jean Grey comes to speak with Cassandra Nova, and it's explained that thinking that Cassandra hadn't changed after the events of the previous X-Men Red series. But at the end of that, Jean basically gave Cassandra Nova empathy and compassion. So she knows what it is she's doing. She doesn't seem to care. So it turns out that so the mutant that the Marauders rescued was the mutant Fever Pitch, and Bishop, absorbing the energy that Fever Pitch was letting off, basically converted most of it into power cells. And they were distributed. Those power cells got distributed. But Aurora is being recruited. At the time, at this point, he's recruiting Aurora for the Marauders. Akihiro, Wolverine's son, Aurora's boyfriend, is going to a degree of a form of therapy for his recent trauma at the hands of Brimstone Love, thanks to an ex of his named Somnus, who is able to who has some interesting dream powers. But and so Captain Pride introduces the rest of her crew to their newest member, Cassandra Nova. Somnus has no idea who Cassandra Nova is. But yeah, everyone else on the crew does. There's also a scientific council meeting about Cassandra Nova between Dr. Nemesis, Cecilia Reyes, and Mr. Sinister. But it turns out that the riddle on the map implies that the very first generation of mutants are prisoners of the Shi'ar. And so, the Marauders were going to fly into Shi'ar space to rescue the first generation of mutants. However, Empress Zandra is informed of this, and namely of the fact that the first generation of mutants are prisoners of the Shi'ar, and their freedom would be disastrous for the Empire. And upon learning that the Marauders appears to be heading towards Shi'ar space, the order is given to make sure that it does not reach Shi'ar space. And so, they're attacked. Psylocke and Bishop exit the ship to attack the Shi'ar vessel that's come after them. However, they're boarded by none other than Eric the Red, which is where the issue ends. I'm loath to say a good first issue from the creative team, as the annual was kind of that, but it's a good first issue for the series. I'm looking forward to seeing just what plays out here. The Shi'ar have largely been allies to the X-Men. There have been some points where they weren't, but by and large they've been allies. Which is, I would say, largely why there's been no mention of the Shi'ar in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it'll be interesting to see just what happens with the first generation of mutants plotline. Moving on to our next book, we've got X-Force Annual number 1. So, simply put, X-Force is sent after a stolen shipment of Krakoan flowers. But Sage gets the idea something's off. Beast is running the op, and Emma Frost comes to speak with him. And in fact, even in an effort to make him, to assure him that she will not just simply read his mind, she takes her diamond form, and they talk. Meanwhile, the X-Force strike team is going to a volcano in Ethiopia. Kid Omega is able to find their way in, secret entrances, and as they make their way through, first Kid Omega is captured, then Wolverine is incapacitated with an electromagnet holding him in place, as he's then constantly attacked by what appear to be Sentinels with bladed weapons. Meanwhile, Domino runs into a room with four separate floor panels, each one looking like a six-sided dice, which I actually, for once, do not have handy to show. But basically, you have one with a 1, 2 with 2. You guys have played tabletop games and board games, right? You know what I'm talking about. But she steps on one of them and ends up in in one of 3 capture rooms, basically. But yeah. It turns out it was a trap. It was a trap, because Orcus wanted to study X-Force and try and find additional weak spots. But Domino's luck starts to go her way. However, and Domino's luck starts to change for everyone. Help everyone change their own scenario with the magnet holding Wolverine in place has polarity reversed, allowing Wolverine to do some further intel on the building and or on the location. He hacks up the surgery robots on his way to rescue Quentin. Now, one point to make about the conversation between Emma and Beast is that Emma states there was no stolen shipment recently. But Wolverine saves Kid Omega, and then the two of them toss one of the damaged robots down at the Domino, and she manages to get it free. And they've got they get the lab's mainframe and escape as the volcano erupts. But what it basically boils down to is that Beast was aware that Orcus had set a trap for X-Force and decided to spring it. If nothing else, to see what information Orcus gleaned from this trap. As the team heads back to Krakoa, it seems that maybe Quentin is starting to think that maybe Beast knew what was going to happen to them, but he dismisses it as they head home. Solid annual, and even though I'm still on the fence with Beast the asshole. But at the same time, it's kind of thing where it's not a new development. It's been brewing for quite some time, and it's just just seeing it like this. Ugh, yeah. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we got X Force number 27. I do wish that Marvel could have decided whether or not, okay, are we going to have new number ones for everything, or are we going to go with, just keep the current numbering. But yeah, Wolverine's reflecting on his recent mission through time, and the Cerebro helmet begins to the X on it begins to glow red as after he leaves. Beast is making a suggestion on what to do with Omega Red to the Council, namely expunge all data about him, expunge it, make him truly dead. Sage, however, has another idea. Basically, actually give him a second chance, and we get a write up on some intentions for his next resurrection. Forge, who was hit with his own power nullifying gun during 10 Lives and 10 Deaths of Wolverine, basically got killed in the had himself killed in the Crucible, and then resurrected as a mutant. But he's checking out a disturbance at the specific cradle that Wolverine had been at earlier, and is attacked by glowing techno-organic-ish tentacles. X-Force is also talking about what happened, what to do with Omega Red, and they pretty much all. Domino, Sage, and Quentin are actually in favor of resurrecting him. With Quentin even saying, "Hey, if he betrays us again, I'll kill him myself." Wolverine doesn't like it, but I think I would say Wolverine's biased in the fact that he's had a lot of run-ins with Omega Red, none of which were good, positive. But with Domino kind of pointing out that he of all people should be in favor of second chances. Elsewhere, the Veg is telling Black Tom something. It apparently chowed down on something. There's blood, so he follows the blood trail and ends up in the armory, where it seems Ford is wearing the glowing red X helmet. And Tom decides that discretion is the better part of valor and runs. On Araco, Beast is ruminating about his recent decisions and the fact that it seems he's kind of, that maybe people. The way I would say it is that people are onto the fact that he's an absolutely amoral asshole, and so, they don't entirely trust him. However, Beast doesn't feel he's really changed. But he meets with Abigail Brand, his ex, and they talk. They talk, and they hug. We have a short quote from Colossus about Omega Red, who is eventually resurrected. And, he attacks Beast, though he is prevented from doing any harm to Beast. And Colossus simply states to give Omega Red time. However, Black Tom manages to make his presence known in the hatchery and asks for help. The team arrives at the armory. Apparently, Black Tom brought the roof down, and Forge's body is discovered and it looked like someone basically scooped his brain out. Elsewhere on the island, the Cerebro helmet is going off on its own, presumably with Forge's brain stuck in it, or powering it. But, and that is where the issue ends. Okay, nice point to nice, kickoff to X-Force for the Second Krakoan Age. Moving on, we've got X-Men Red, #1. So X-Men Red is taking the place of Sword, and it takes place on Arakko. We start with Storm, a flashback to Storm fighting for her seat on the Council of Arakko, and obviously winning. But it's just, the question becomes, the question has come up whether or not Arakko should return to war. But there's been a new arrival to Arakko. Magneto. There's an island and seems to out of the way, and he decided he's going to settle there. Talks to one of the locals, a fisherman, who we learn is generally referred to simply as the Fisher King. And Magneto makes himself the Autumn Palace out of a wad of metal he's brought with him. At the Port Prometheus spaceport, Sunspot is ruminating with an Arakko, an Iraqi mutant. They both apparently have lovers who sacrifice themselves so that the other can live. When Vulcan shows up and starts shit with a Shi'ar ambassador, Sunspot tries to break it up. However, when Sunspot powers up, Vulcan absorbs his energy or power from him and starts a fight. Which Thunderbird promptly ends by letting out his frustration on the Summers family on Vulcan. But then the continued fight is stopped by Brand and Cable. Cable and Thunderbird have very tense argument. And to be fair, I mean, Cable's comments to Thunderbird are way below the belt. And but Thunderbird says he's going to keep he's going to stick around on Arakko, whether Brand wants him there or not. We then find out how the nine seats of the Great Ring voted on to make war or make peace. In the end, with Iska having abstained, the vote was tied at 4, and so Storm used her second vote for peace. So the motion for peace carries. But Brand comes to Storm, explaining that they kind of need some Arakko needs X-Men. But Storm disagrees. And Magneto is working on furnishing his palace. Turns out the Fisher King doesn't have powers. Explaining however he was born in the prisons. And kind of hearing his tale, I think Magneto kind of understands when Sunspot shows up, explaining that he also stated, Marky's X-Men, and asks if the Fisher King and Magneto are in. But Storm arrives and explains that no, the X-Men are not what Mars needs. And so Magneto asks who defends the broken land. To which Storm replies, the Brotherhood does. And that is where the issue ends. Okay, alright. Nice, good way to kick off X-Men Red. And for our last book moment, we have Deadpool, Bad Blood, #1. Which, it's a Rob Liefeld drawn and storied Deadpool book. So, yeah. But Deadpool's running from someone, and a massive armored thing called Bumper shows up, and seemingly kills Wade. But he's relating all of this to Domino. Thinking maybe she could help him track Thumper. But he goes over the whole backstory with her. And one of the it involves a past X-Force mission. Now, something to point out. Rob Liefeld tends to be very opinionated about the fact that the Domino he introduced in New Mutants '98 would be revealed to be Vanessa Carlyle, Copycat, shortly around the time he left Marvel. But he at least accepts that was something that happened in the canon. However, somehow this X-Force flashback is clearly from the early days of X-Force. We've got Warpath, Shatterstar, Cable, and Domino, which means at that point in time it would be Copycat. And so yeah, she shouldn't know about this. Oh, and Cannonball. So they bust into the Mutant Liberation Front base. Injuring the support staff with yet another duel between Reaper and Shatterstar, in which Shatterstar slices off Reaper's right hand, having previously done so in, oh god, I think it was X-Force #1, like the original X-Force #1. And the door opens, and who does X-Force find standing behind it? Deadpool. And that is where the issue ends. Well, also with Cable telling X-Force, "Hey, you know what? You guys want to use lethal force? Deadpool. You can use all the lethal force on him you want." Deadpool, however, says that this just got interesting. I mean, this could if I can if I can kill any of you guys, the job has got a whole hell of a lot more profitable. It's a Rob Liefeld controlled Deadpool story because, well, I mean, he's got to eat, right? You know. The thing is, I highly doubt anything from this story will end up being truly considered canon by anyone but Rob Liefeld and the people who don't mind his art. But anyway, that's going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.